So how many of us have taken our roles and responsibilities really seriously in the team? Okay, I hear that all of us are working together. Okay, but why? Because it's about working together. Great. Uh, but then we had a look at your results, and so did our shareholders, and they're not really happy about what they see. Uh, but anyway, so coming back, we've plotted the different ways in which companies are interacting, and we just plotted some of them here. So let's understand what do you think is happening here. Okay. So one person is instructing, others are listening. Okay. What is happening here? Okay, so one person, two people are talking. You have two groups forming. Does it happen in any of the companies here? Yes, it does. Okay, so or maybe it's only the two people are talking. Others have no point to give, and what do the others do? Give moral support to those who are talking. Okay, fair. What do you think is happening here? Good news, all of us are contributing, but who's listening? No one. And what do you think is happening here? This seems very interesting, and I see a lot of it happening in this workshop. Okay, so four people are sitting and discussing, but what about these two? Okay, this person is out there taking calls, looking out of the window, etc. Okay, but what about this person? Maybe this person is doing that. What about this person? This person is very much part of the business. Yes, this is your friend who suddenly comes and befriends you during the workshop. They want to understand how you are, what you're doing, etc. But beware of these friends, because your friends of yesterday are no longer friends of today, they are your competitors. So whenever a competitor comes very close to your table or your boardroom, beware, because they might probably be trying to get competitive information out of you. So this is your industrial espionage. So beware of these people. There might be some people in the room like this, but you'll have to figure out who is that. And finally, what do you think is happening here? Great, all of us are contributing, all of us are discussing, excellent. But uh, this becomes very much like a democracy where all of us are trying to contribute, and it becomes a chaos, and no proper decision gets taken place. And this is something which you might want to avoid, where you have no decision being taken till the last moment because all of you are discussing. But then I see this thing happening more often than not in this workshop. What is this? Okay, this is your laptop screen. And who is this person? CEO, is that the CEO or is it the laptop owner? Okay, so this person is the CEO, but not necessarily a chief executive officer, but we're going to call this person chief Excel officer. Because in every team, you'll see that there is someone who's already opened up their Excels and put down all the numbers. And when you start working, they say we should price it at 5,256. And you're like, why is it 5,256? So they go change cell B3 and they scroll down and cell V65 changes to green. And you'll be like, boss, how did that happen? And they show you the same thing again. But no one understands what goes on between B and V. So beware of people who do this. And again, you can't challenge them because they've made the decision to work and we have not, so we better listen to what they're saying. So beware of people who do this. This becomes very important to check whether the assumptions that they made on Excel are right or wrong. But coming back, the shareholders are not really happy about how we are making decisions in our organization. So, moving forward, the shareholders are going to measure each of the top management member using individual metrics. Okay, so let's just look at the Excel sheet that we had. Uh, so coming back, what do you think the CEO should be measured on? The CEO should be measured on profits, market share. Okay. So market share, I'm going to say, is comparable to your revenue. I can translate it to revenue. But which profit are we talking about? Because if you look at a P&L, you have a gross profit, you have something called PBITDA, you have PBIT, you have PBT, and you have PAT. Which profit are we talking about? EBITDA, EBIT. Okay, this is tricky, but let's understand why do we have these different profit figures in the first place? Uh, so let's take every line at one time, each line at one time. So let's say cut begin. Let's look at the Excel for to see where each role stands. So what should a CEO be held responsible for? Revenue, okay, market share, profits. Okay, so the CEO is going to be held responsible, let's say, for profit, but which profit? Because if you look at your P&L, you have a lot of profits that a CEO can be held responsible for. Which profit are we talking about? And why do we have so many profits in the first place? Can't we just say our company, will get some revenue, our company has some cost, profit is equal to revenue minus expense, and go on with it? Okay, let's try to take this one line at a time. Who do you think is going to be held responsible for sales? Okay, sales is usually your sales, or let me say sales and marketing in this case. So your sales and marketing team is responsible for sales, but who's responsible for cost of goods sold? Okay, operations. But then is the operations person only responsible, or is there someone else who could be responsible for this? Yeah, you also know that your cost of goods sold is cost per unit into number of units sold. So here the number of units sold is determined by your sales and marketing teams, while the cost per unit is under the control of your operations manager, operations head. So your operations head could be held responsible for cost per unit, but the COGS is again a cross functional decision between your sales head and operations head. But coming to your gross profit, who's responsible for gross profit? Yeah, it could be your sales manager and operations manager. But in most organizations, even before the sales and marketing heads take the product to the market, they already know what the cost of each product is going to be. So in most cases, the cost is known before they take it to the market. So the only thing that is still uncertain is the price at which you're going to sell. So usually your sales and marketing managers are held accountable for this gross margin because they can also control the revenue. The COGS is typically fixed. The cost per unit is known or fixed beforehand. So your gross profit is usually the responsibility of your sales and marketing manager again. So coming to salary, who's responsible for salary? Salary again, HR. Okay. So in how many companies does HR come and say we need to hire 4 more people for this department, or we need to fire 3 people from some other department? No, it does not happen often. So a lot of times your HR manager gives you guidelines on the salary that can be given, and again they help you find the right kind of people, the right kind of fit into the organization. But the final hiring decision is still taken by what we call the line managers. So this salary, I'm going to split it as number of people working in a company into the average salary. The average salary figure is given by your HR, but the number of people are decided by what we're going to call line managers. So who's responsible for admin expense in that case? Okay, admin expense. Let's say for now, let's say rent. Who's responsible for the rent that you pay for offices, sales offices? Admin head. But then does the admin head go out and say we should have 3 more offices in this location, or does the admin head say we should go and open a new office in Himachal? No, that's a call again taken by your sales and marketing heads. But then tell me, can the sales and marketing head take this decision unilaterally? Can they just go about opening as many offices as they want and generate as much demand as they want? No. To know this, you also need to understand what is the capability of your organization. Can your operations team support it or not? So, a lot of times, your sales and marketing team will also have to understand whether the organization wants to do it, and they have to check with the operations team. So, who in an organization has control over both the sales and marketing as well as operations? Is there someone? Yeah, that's usually your chief operating officer or whom we call the BU head. So a lot of times admin expense is going to be a joint decision taken by your sales and marketing and operation under the guidance of COO. And if you come to PBITDA, or you also call it EBITDA, E and P, earning, E stands for earnings, P stands for profit. They are interchangeable terms. So when you talk about EBITDA, who's responsible for EBITDA? And if I have to be responsible for something, I should also have control over what goes into it, what happens there. So you see that your sales, operations, and HR usually report to your COO. So your COO or business unit head is responsible for EBITDA. But coming to depreciation, who takes care of depreciation? Okay, finance. But then did the finance manager or accounts manager decide to put up a plant? No, it was a decision taken by the company, but who in the company decided to put up this plant? It's your CEO. So your CEO decided to put up a plant. Your CEO had the long term of the company in mind and said, in the long term, it's going to benefit us when we put a plant, and thus your CEO decided to make this call. So the depreciation is a responsibility of your CEO. Okay, but how about amortization? Again, technology, long-term investment, that has to be responsibility of CEO. But then who's responsible for PBIT? So this PBIT is otherwise also known as your operating income. Who's going to be responsible for this? CEO, yes, but lot of times this is the responsibility of your COO, because even before you start running your quarter, running your year, the COO knows that there is going to be so much of depreciation and so much of amortization coming in. So your COO has to take this as part of a day-to-day business expense, because this is there so that the business can move on every day. So your COO takes care of running the day-to-day operations of the business, which includes sales, operations, admin expense, etc., etc. Then who's responsible for interest? Okay, finance head. But why is it finance head? So you're saying that the person who did not make this decision, this decision, this decision, this decision is finally going to be held accountable for this? Isn't that a little unfair on them? Okay. So you're saying the finance head could have gone and got interest at a lower rate, interest at a higher rate. Fair enough. So maybe the finance head, you can say, would have got interest at 8% instead of 10%. But then this 8% or 10% is on a certain number, a certain figure. Who's responsible for that figure? Why did this figure come in? You needed this figure because you had to pay salary. You needed this cash because you had to pay admin expense. So why are you holding the finance manager responsible? So this is where, when you look at a finance manager or finance head's office, they will have two parts. One is what you call treasury, which will help you get money at the least possible rate. Your treasury team is in charge for getting cheap money. The next part of your CFO's team is your controller. You must have heard of financial controllers. What do the financial controllers do? They oversee budgets. So in a lot of companies, even though the decision of pricing is the sales and marketing heads, they cannot set the price till they run it through the finance people, till they get the approval of your finance head or financial controller. The same way, even though you can say that my budget is so many crores, can you ever touch your company's money? No. You will have to bounce this off through the finance team, and there are also times when the finance team says no, even though the budget is yours. So every decision that you take here is always bounced through from the finance team, and a decision is taken, because your finance team is the only team which has control over all the cash inflows and outflows in an organization. So this is where your finance team comes in. So and also, how can a finance team go and get money from the external world? When would financial service organizations be ready to give a company money? So when a financial service organization looks at you, they're going to say, I will give you money. If I give you 100 rupees loan at 10% interest, they say, I understand you can't pay the principal upfront, but are you at least in a position to pay the interest? And if you're not in a position to even pay the interest, then your financial service organizations are not going to be too happy lending you money, and they will not lend you money. So what a financial service organization is going to look for is a ratio called interest coverage ratio, which is to say, are you making enough money from your business to at least cover your interest? If not, you're not doing a great job. So in this case, the interest coverage ratio is minus 27,500 divided by the interest that we have to pay, which is 1600, which is going to be in the ballpark of about 1.6. So minus 1.6. And in real life, if your interest coverage ratio is less than 2, positive 2, your financial service organizations will hesitate to give you loans and you might end up not getting one. So it is the job of the finance manager to also ensure that, or the CFO to also ensure that your company is in a good shape to go and get money from outside. So in that case, who's responsible for PBT? Because if I'm responsible for PBT, I should also have control over all the other things that go into this calculation of PBT. So this has components of operations, finance, and who in a company has control over both the operations and finance? That's your CEO, because your COO and your CFO usually report to your CEO. And let's say we have one more component, which is tax. Who's responsible for tax? Okay, that's the government, but again, a lot of times your CEO can also take decisions in an organization which will help you manage your tax. For instance, if you go and set up an office in an SCZ, Special Economic Zone, would you get tax benefits? Yes, but who takes that call in the company? That's the CEO. So a CEO can also impact tax in a positive way based on the long-term decisions that he or she takes. And finally, your PAT is going to be the responsibility of your CEO, because everything that goes in the company has to be responsibility of CEO at the end. So your shareholders say, "Dear CEO, I don't really care what you do and how you do it, but I'm going to measure you on one ratio which covers both the bottom line and the top line. I want sales, I also want profits." So your CEO in a lot of times is measured on what we're going to call return on sales. Your return on sales is the last line of your P&L divided by the first line of your P&L. So your CEO is going to be measured on that. Of course, we saw the finance manager, head of finance is going to be measured on interest coverage ratio. You're going to have your operations manager who will be measured on cost of goods, effective cost per unit. Your head of sales and marketing is going to be measured on market share. What is the market share that they're going to get? And your head of HR will be measured on employee engagement, while your head of R&D will be measured on successful research projects. So when you go back to your interface, you will see that your HR page has a few new items. For example, your roles and targets earlier only had roles and managers, but now they also have key metrics and what is the target and what is the forecast. For instance, we said CEO is measured on return on sales. So what is going to be the target that the CEO is going to get? And again, who's going to set these targets for the top management folks? Okay, board of directors. But board of directors, a lot of them are not experts in the industry. They are only people who are experts in certain parts of the business. So your target, usually when you work in a company, your target is a part of your boss target, and your boss's target is part of his boss's target, etc., etc. So if you look at this in total, at some level for the top management, there is no one to give targets. So the top management usually decides on the target themselves and they run it through the board of directors to get it validated. So here you will have to set targets for yourself. Let's say last time the CEO made an actual return on sale of minus 63.6%. So this time you have to set a target. And again, when you say you have to set a target, it doesn't mean you have to get high numbers. If you say my target is going to be minus 10%, then it is minus 10%. It's perfectly fine. But ensure that you meet this minus 10%. And again, when filling these, please do not add the percentage symbol. Head of HR, will come to it in a minute. Head of marketing, last time the market share that we got was 16.61. So this time, let me say we're going to try to achieve 17% market share. Head of R&D, we plan to achieve 2 successful research projects. Head of operations, let's say we want to have a cost reduction up to 4,000 rupees per unit. And head of finance, let's say the interest coverage ratio that we are looking for this time is 1. And coming to head of HR, you see that you want to understand employee engagement, but here we cannot go and ask our employees on how engaged they are. So instead, we are going to ask our top management team on how engaged they are. So as soon as your quarter results are out, you will have to take a poll. You will have to tell us how engaged you are on a score of 1 to 10. Score of 1 means you are not at all engaged. Score of 10 means you are really engaged. So let's say Deepak, what is your engagement score on 1 to 10? 10 means you're absolutely engaged, 1 means you're not. So let's say you say 7, okay, Pooja, 6, and Vikram is going to be 7 for Vikram. Okay. And you see that last time Deepak, who was the head of HR, did not set any targets for employee engagement, but the average employee engagement is 6.67, which is the average of these numbers. And since Deepak has exceeded his targets, he got a bonus of 50,000 rupees from Singhania or from the shareholder. So your shareholder is going to give you this money. This is not part of what your company is going to give out. This comes from your shareholders kitty. So every time a top manager achieves or beats his target, he or she is going to get a bonus. So with this, let's go back and look at our quarter 2 results. And when we start off, let's take the first 15 minutes to analyze what happened in quarter 2. And then for the next 10 minutes, let's set the targets for Q3 and then start making decisions for Q3.